Hello, one and all, and welcome to Johnnie Torch Live number 8. Number 8 edition of the Johnnie Torch program. So, welcome one and all for this edition. We have the WWE Money in the Bank coming up this weekend. And that's primarily what we're going to be talking about today. Don't have too many topics really to cover this week, so I figured I'd devote most of the show to WWE. Um, Let me see. Wait a second. Here we go. I got something going on in the chat. Oh, hello, Splash Page Comics. Thank you for tuning in. Nice to see someone that I know checking out the show. I've got a pretty brief show tonight because I'm starting a little bit later. I don't think it's going to be on that long, but want to touch on some of these matches that we're going to see in Money in the Bank. Feel free to comment, and I'll read all your comments, especially if you're watching this live, of course. If you aren't watching it live, let me know in the comments what you thought of the show after the fact. All right, so let's see. First off, let's take a look at what we have for the kickoff show. The kickoff match. We have the Hype Brothers versus the Colons, or the Colones. I don't know exactly how you pronounce that. Still, the Hype Brothers finally. Zach is back and he's healthy, and so now he's back with Mojo Rawley, and the Colons or the Colones. Uh, they're sort of being rebranded now. They're not. Well, they're probably still jobbers, but they're trying to make them mid card. Let's put it that way. Probably I'm gonna have to go with the Hype Brothers on this one. I think Mojo Rawley at least has been gaining some traction in the uh, in the absence of Zack Ryder. I imagine that's going to continue on, and they are probably going to get the victory here. The Colons, I don't really know what's gonna, if they're going to advance. I like the way Brizongo has been, getting a push. That's going to be something that we see, hopefully in the future. They're not on the card with the Money in the Bank program here, so I don't know. I don't know if they're going to get a push after this. All right, so let's move on now. Let's see. I'm not taking these in any particular order, so I'm just reading them off here. Let's see. We've got the Women's Championship. We've got Naomi versus Lana. Lana sort of at the 11th hour the past 2 weeks has initiated herself into the, championship scene, into the championship picture. Uh, Naomi, I've made no bones about the fact that I don't think she's a great champion. I don't know. I am going to probably go out on a limb and say Lana wins this one. Now, there might be some shenanigans involved. Probably will be, because, Lana doesn't have a long, singles career. She hasn't. I don't know if she's wrestled at all. I mean, when I started getting back into wrestling, she was, sparring with Summer Rae, and I don't think she has a very long career in, actual wrestling. So it probably is going to be due to some shenanigans. I think she's going to win only because I'm pretty sure that whoever wins the Money in the Bank, the female Money in the Bank uh, match tonight, is probably going to win against, the champion, whoever wins the championship here. Naomi, I don't know. I like that at least that they've given her some, some personality, because back in the day, she really didn't. She was more of a backdrop for Sasha Banks, and sort of a posse member, so to speak. They did boost her a little bit with this championship reign. Hopefully they can parlay that into a decent career for her. I think it's time to take the title off her personally. Probably Lana will get it. Probably she won't keep it for very long. I wouldn't be surprised if she loses it, on SmackDown the following week. All right, so let's see. We have the Tag Team Championship. We've got the Usos versus the New Day. Now, this is kind of interesting because, the New Day are the longest reigning tag team champions. They've held the belt, I don't know exactly how long, but they beat the Demolition's record. Uh, I don't really see the point in putting it on them again. They're two-time champions. It would probably look good if they could say the three-time champions. That's the only thing I could think of. I personally hope they keep it on the Usos. Uh, I wouldn't be surprised if they put it on the New Day, but I am going to go. My prediction will be: I think the Usos retain. They, I was hoping they were going to give the belt to Breezango, like I said, but that didn't pan out. I feel like it would be a step backwards if we put the belts back on the New Day, and I'm a big fan of the New Day personally. I mean, I like the New Day, and I like Enzo and Cass, but I don't know. I don't see them beating the Usos. I don't see what it accomplishes for either team. Eh, I don't know. Speaking of, I'm not going to do a long recap of Raw and everything, but that just brought to my mind Enzo and Cass. I kind of wish they were getting their push, but this, of course, is a SmackDown pay-per-view, so of course you're not going to see Enzo and Cass and so on and so forth. But so the Big Show has been subtly driving a wedge between Cass and Enzo. So that's been an interesting storyline. A lot of people are thinking Cass is going to go heel or maybe Enzo. From the way they're playing it, it looks like maybe Cass. I don't think it's going to be Enzo if one of them does go heel and they break the team up. I hope they don't break the team up. I wanted to see them as champs before they, eventually part ways. If they do, in fact, part ways. I suppose that's all speculation. But uh, I don't know. According to, the way the storyline's been playing out, I don't think it's going to be a breakup in the team. I think that it's probably going to end with a Big Show and somebody else, having some kind of rivalry with Cass and Enzo. Because Cass is obviously not taking it well that Big Show has been coming to the aid of Enzo. All right, so let's see. Looking back here at the roster, the matches, we've got the WWE Championship, Jinder Mahal versus Randy Orton. A lot of people making a big stink about Jinder Mahal. He hasn't been a bad heel champion. He's kind of made his mark. I think he's probably going to beat Randy Orton here. They had the sneak attack RKO on Jinder Mahal on SmackDown this past week. I don't know. I don't see Randy Orton beating Jinder Mahal because this rivalry really hasn't had the greatest heat. And I think they probably just keep the belt on Jinder to make him lose it to whoever wins Money in the Bank. Probably. That's what I would say. Because I don't think it benefits. It doesn't benefit the storyline, and it doesn't benefit Randy Orton really to give him the belt back again off of this sort of back and forth that they've been doing with Jinder Mahal. So I'm going to give it to Jinder Mahal on this one. All right, and so we've got the men's Money in the Bank, because there's two Money in the Bank matches this week. We have the men's Money in the Bank that's going to be featuring Kevin Owens, AJ Styles, Shinsuke Nakamura, Dolph Ziggler, Sami Zayn, and Baron Corbin. All right, so at first glance, well, Kevin Owens is pretty much out because he's already got the belt. So, he's got the world championship belt. He doesn't have the the world heavyweight title. But so he's pretty much out. Though I don't see them putting both belts on him. AJ Styles, love to see him with the belt again. Don't think that's going to happen. Of course, Dolph Ziggler and Sami Zayn are probably out. Most people are putting their money on either Baron Corbin or Shinsuke Nakamura. I think it's too soon to put on Nakamura. I personally am not that impressed with him. I know a lot of people. He has a lot of fans. He hasn't shown anything really yet, other than sort of a quirky personality that really makes me, hope for a big push from him. I've always been a fan of Dolph Ziggler. You kind of feel at this point he's kind of had his day. I don't think they're going to give it back to him. Sami Zayn, I don't know. It's almost the same situation. He doesn't really get a real big push. Probably going to be Baron Corbin, I'm going to say, because I think we need another heel, and they've been trying to build Corbin up a little bit in the past oh, I don't know, let's say 2 months to be, he has the feud with Dean Ambrose and now more recently with Sami Zayn. I would say probably Baron Corbin would be the smartest choice if they're not going to just put it on AJ Styles again. Um, put the Money in the Bank on AJ Styles. Um, of course, if it does go to AJ Styles, that would probably be a better setup for a match with Jinder Mahal. But I don't know. I'm still feeling Baron Corbin, so I'm going to give this one to Baron Corbin, I think. All right, and finally we have the female Money in the Bank match. Let's see. This is with Charlotte, Carmella, Natalya, Tamina, and Becky Lynch. This one is a little bit more difficult to try to discern here. Uh, on face value, I would say when it comes to, they push Charlotte an awful lot, and I've also said in the past I really am not that big of a fan of Charlotte. It's nothing really personal. It's just that she's had the belt long enough. I don't really think we need to have another run with her with the belt again. I think she's probably the odds-on favorite. I personally don't want to see another Charlotte title run. Tamina and Natalya probably out. They're probably just there for the ambiance. Uh, Carmella is an interesting dark horse pick. I've heard some people saying that Carmella might be the sort of the dark horse pick that's going to win this one. I personally am a fan, of course, of Becky Lynch. I would like to see Becky Lynch win it again, win the title again, of course, and this would be, of course, the perfect stepping stone. Um, I'm going to go with Becky Lynch, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's Charlotte, especially if Charlotte is going to, or whoever's going to win this one will probably have to challenge either Naomi or Lana. I'm thinking maybe if Becky Lynch wins, they'll have her beat Lana for the title, probably the following SmackDown. Um, Apart from that, I really don't know. This is probably the toughest one to pick, I suppose. I mean, that I don't have a real strong feeling one way or the other. But okay, so if you have any predictions that you'd like to share, let me know. Like I said, if you're watching this after the fact in the comments, or if you're watching live, you can let me know now, and I'll pass them along to the viewing audience. Um, yeah, like I said, kind of a short show today. Don't have a whole lot to talk about. Last week we talked about the DC Comics movies and I ranked them. I thought it was a really good show, so you can go back and watch that one if you want because it really didn't get that many views. Also wanted to touch on, in case you weren't aware, the Powerless episode with Adam West. They actually are showing it on YouTube now. DC Entertainment is. So if you haven't seen that one yet, you want to West, of course, you want to check that out because that's probably the last live action work. He's going to have the um, animated sequel to the Return of the Cape Crusaders coming out probably in October, I would expect, since that came out, the Return of the Cape Crusaders came out in October of last year. I guess it's going to be out probably in October of this year. I'm really looking forward to that, and we talked about that last week too because sadly, his passing, the news broke at the time I was doing the live show. And of course, that was a nice tribute. I'm sure many of you seen it. The bat single being lit in Adam West's honor in L.A. Very, very nice tribute to him. And not too many people can do that. I don't see too many people them. Oh, Splash Page. That's okay. Thank you, Splash Page, for supporting me. I'm glad to see you showing up. I know it was a pretty tough week this week for you to show up if you're not a wrestling fan because I spent probably the first 15 minutes of the show on wrestling. But I'm gonna touch on a couple of things here. Like I said, the Adam West tribute that was on in L.A. was very nice thing. I just wanted to point out. Adam West, of course, my favorite Batman. And like I said, I don't think that you'll ever see anybody getting the bat single lit in their honor. that's probably the only actor that's going to be afforded that honor, uh, because he was, he put the stamp on Batman that is what made that show popular. I don't think Batman as a character would be as big as he is today if it wasn't for the Batmania that swept across the land because of the Adam West Batman. And of course, it's the writing and you know, all the guest stars that also contributed, of course, to that popularity, the popularity of that show. But that is that is the crucial element that made Batman a household name, the Adam West Batman. So, once again, my cowl is off to Adam West for all he brought to the character of Batman and to the popularity of Batman. Especially nowadays, people are not as, you know, jaded or gruff about the campier version of Batman. A lot of people get the joke now. It was a different thing back in the day when I was a kid, when people were, oh, it ruined Batman. Batman couldn't be taken seriously. And of course, there was a bit of a backlash because, people wanted to see the well, I don't want to say realistic, but the more classic version. And, you know, I understand that, but there was something to be said for the fun and escapism of the Adam West series. Splash Page Comics says it was a fun run and it will always stand out and can never be done that well again. Amen to that. I agree totally and completely. You're never going to see that kind of just pure fun and, unadulterated escapism. It was like the comic book. Yes, exactly. That was the Silver Age Batman to a T. That was the quintessential adaptation from comics to screen. A lot of people, you know, probably don't have a historical perspective on it that that was what was going on at that time in the comics. And it matured a little bit towards the end of the 60s and the beginning of the 70s, but at the time that was a pretty good, pretty accurate adaptation of Batman comics. I've been reading, and I'm going back and forth on whether I want to do a review of it, but I've been reading the World's Finest, the original first. Well, it's a selection of the greatest issues of Silver Age Batman Superman team ups, starting with Superman 76, where, of course, Batman first met Superman in the original run of the comics. And a little bit of trivia, of course, the way they found out each other's identities, they had the same cabin. They were like cabin mates, and Batman and Superman both changed from their secret identities into their personas in the cover of Darkness, but both found out each other's identities. It was pretty, it was pretty good fun, back in the day when superheroes automatically were friends and they didn't hate each other for no apparent reason and there were no ideological, differences to keep them apart. It was just, hey, you're a superhero? Yeah, I am too. And, it became a lifelong friendship that lasted for like, I don't know, probably what, 60 years before they started making them more adversarial. But I always enjoy those early comics, those early reprints. I've got of a series of them to go through. Maybe I'll do a review on that. As I said, I did a review on Batman 66 Meets the Green Hornet. That came out about 2 years ago, I think, with Ralph Garman and Kevin Smith. I thought it was pretty good. You can check that review out. Also, I did a review on Marvel Masterworks Spider-Man. I don't remember exactly what volume that was, but it's getting close to like 100 views. So it's actually pretty popular. You can find that in my popular uploads. Excuse me. So I always wonder if I should do more comic book reviews because I mostly stick to television shows, movies. I did the Batman 66 Meets the Green Hornet, and it didn't get really too much traction. So that video. So I don't know if maybe I should either try something a little more mainstream because that's maybe a little more of a niche comic. But I'm going to try to review some more comics. I'm actually reading Avengers Marvel Masterworks now. Um, and I have the volumes of all the Superman of the 40s, Superman of the 50s, Superman of the 60s, Superman of the 70s. I've got Batman of the 40s, Batman of the 50s, Batman of the 60s. So I mean, I could probably look through those and do some reviews on those too if anybody's interested in some DC reviews. Because I probably read a little more Marvel than DC. That's not really. I've always felt like I like both sides of the aisle equally. I suppose maybe my feet hang over the fence to the side of Marvel. I know, do what you love and not what you think people want. Yeah, that's true. That's something I always live by pretty much, especially as a cartoonist myself. I write stories pretty much just with my own amusement in mind. So it's words to live by. Um, as I said, kind of a brief show today. Once again, the last video I did was a tribute to Adam West. And yeah, Marvel, go Marvel. That's right. And so check out my tribute to Adam West in my 50th news roundup. We also take a look at the Spider-Man trailers, the two Spider-Man trailers. I'm way late reviewing them, but I reviewed them. And the Black Panther trailer, which just came out not too long ago. I didn't fall off the reservation too much on that one. I got that one done pretty much in time. But yeah, to you know to make a point, I'm pretty sure that Black Panther is going to be a pretty sizable success. Oh yeah, the old stuff, Splash Page Comics, the old stuff. Yeah, absolutely the old stuff. That's part of the problem where I can't really review comics of today. I just don't read it. I just don't read any of this stuff. Of course, the first problem is they're very expensive. I mean, like for a 22-page comic, you got to spend like $5. That's part of the problem. Admittedly, I can't shell out on stuff that I know I'm not going to like. And of course, the other part of the reason why I don't read comics these days is it feels like it's pretty much all tapped out. They're just doing things more of gimmicks, and of course we've got the SJW stuff and all that crap where we can't have like the original characters. It's got to be like there's the Black Captain America and the gay Iceman and this and that and the other thing. They can't just stick to the original concept of some of these characters. And I realize that, when you've written a character for 60 years or so, it gets difficult to try to find something new to say with that character, but they're just not obviously not making the effort, or it's just not clicking with whatever they're doing with me as an old-time fan. So I only read Silver Age, Bronze Age stuff that goes down to like the 90s. I've been looking at some old 80s Daredevil lately. Even that stuff was pretty good, but I mean that's like the tail end of when I was interesting. Yeah, that's exactly right. The Silver Age for me, that was the best. And some of the Bronze Age. I mean, I read probably my stuff is mostly. I mean, I dip back into the 40s and 50s. That stuff's fun. I read probably mostly 70s and 60s, or 60s and 70s if you want to be uh, precise. And I was a kid in the 80s, and so that's what started my lifelong love of comics, was reading the comics of the 80s. But even that, at the tail end of the 80s, I could tell that I was only gonna go backwards and probably not really get with you know the the future of comics. It wasn't really for me. But you know a lot of stuff in the 80s, that's what happened. In the 80s, it's like I end up being like disenfranchised with a lot of the characters, because then you had in DC, you had a lot of things happening. Yeah, a lot of things happened, like oh, we lost like Barry Allen and it went to Wally West, and Hal Jordan was like retired and stuff. A lot of stuff in the 80s, they kind of lost their way with a lot of those characters over in DC. Over in Marvel, part of the stuff that was making me a little disenfranchised with them was my favorite character is, of course, the Incredible Hulk. And they started doing the Gray Hulk and well, it started off, I think, as the Smart Hulk, and then it became the Savage Hulk, and then it became the Gray Hulk, or something like that. Kind of got me uninterested in Marvel for a long time, mostly in the Hulk. But I mean, I still read, I think, Spider-Man and Captain America for a few years during the late 80s. But that pretty much is what sort of disenfranchised me to the current state of comics. But Yeah, at least we'll always have that period, 60s, 70s, and 80s. I love the early, Stan Lee and Jack Kirby stuff. Of course, Fantastic Four and Spider-Man, Steve Ditko and Stan Lee. Great stuff then, and you know, they just can't replace that kind of wonder and the early, you know, infancy of the Marvel universe. It was very hard to be able to recapture that now. Yeah, exactly. Splash Page Comics says that was a bad time for me also because the Hulk is my favorite book too. That's right. It was a very tough time because the problem, and I always wanted to do a rant on the Hulk because I never felt he was really given the treatment that he should have. It seemed to be a place where they had absolutely nothing. They had absolutely no game plan of what to do with the Hulk. It became sort of a thing where you have the you have the the core of the Hulk is he is a misunderstood monster, and you have his alter ego, Bruce Banner, wanting to be rid of his alter ego, the Hulk. That's something that was really great to tap into. But after they sort of played that out in the 70s and early 80s, they didn't know what to do with the Hulk anymore. And it became frustrating because then it became a different character. He wasn't the Savage Hulk anymore. He was this Hulk. Then he was the Gray Hulk. Then he was Mr. Fix-It Hulk. And then there was this Hulk and that Hulk. It really, that's why I think everybody always goes back to the Bill Bixby show, or at least that was like, even though it wasn't completely comic accurate, of course, but that was the quintessential take on the Hulk. That's right. Splash Page Comics, the Smash Wild Savage Hulk kicked butt and didn't take names. That's right. See, that's the kind of Hulk that appealed to children as well, especially as a kid. You wanted to see the Hulk because you wanted to see him transform and be able to just knock the heck out of stuff and smash things up. It was a great character because also at the other end you have the intelligence. You had the Bruce Banner side, and you had the man wanting desperately to get away from his alter ego, and on the other side you had the misunderstood monster that only wanted to be, befriending someone to understand him. And it was a great blend. It's not your average superhero, the Hulk. He's not your average superhero. He doesn't put on a costume and go out and fight crime. It's the same thing that I've been saying about the live action incarnations. I really like the Ed Norton movie because that's the closest we're ever going to see the Hulk being treated as he should be. I think they could have done a little bit more with his character. They could have done a little bit better. But that's the most, because the Hulk is not really a team player. You're not going to see him on the Avengers as a, you know, as a as a team player, so to speak. It's very difficult to, find a niche for him in a ensemble movie. When you focus on him alone, that's where the true character comes out. But the problem is they're never going to do that with Marvel because the character is it's a confusing thing. It's semi-licensed by Universal, and Universal has to have the distribution rights, and Disney slash Marvel don't want to share that. It's a very difficult thing to ever expect to get another solo Hulk movie out. And that's the problem that we're seeing with like squashing the Hulk into a Thor movie, squashing the Hulk into a Avengers movie. Let's see. Splash Page says Banner's part was to find a cure and not to take over the personality of the Hulk. That's right. That's exactly it. It was he wanted to be rid of the Hulk. He didn't want to be, he was losing his identity to the Hulk, and the Hulk was consequently losing his identity to Banner, and that's why Hulk hated Banner, and it was one or the other had to dominate at the time. There was no merging of it. There was no other personalities. They started like psychoanalyzing it. That was a big trend in the 90s or maybe the late 80s where they started psychoanalyzing the characters. A lot of that happened with Batman and so that's kind of what pushed at the end of the 80s the Hulk into that strange area where they psychoanalyzed him, and it's like, well, he's got this kind of disorder and he's got that kind of disorder, and you know he he could be classified under some kind of psychiatric uh diagnosis. So it became difficult to see it as just the simple wish fulfillment of everybody wants to, in a way, be the Hulk and turn into the Hulk and break crap up, and then at the other end of it, you have the man that's like afraid to let loose and not lose control and let the beast out. So we've lost that with the Hulk. We've lost that a lot. Splash Page Comics. Hulk will always have to be a second billing. He had his chance in movies, and they blew it now. Just a supporting character in the movies. Absolutely right. That's right. Because it was mostly because of the Universal deal that they have with him. Because of course Universal made the TV show with Bill Bixby, and they had the rights to the character. And then they made that awful 2003 movie. And when Marvel came calling, they were all right with making the Hulk movie, The Incredible Hulk, in I think it was 2008. But the problem with that was now that they're sold to Disney, Disney doesn't want to share the profits with Universal by having it distributed by Universal. Almost the same thing we see with Spider-Man Homecoming and Sony. They've got a certain amount of rights where they have to, exercise their rights on their part of the property. And money is involved and it becomes a headache. Of course, Spider-Man is such a big character that, you know, all parties are willing to play ball. But when it comes to the Hulk, his popularity has diminished because of what we've been talking about. He's not really, you know, he's not really portrayed correctly. And then of course you have a lot of crap happen to the supporting characters of the Hulk. I mean, Betty Ross has been killed and brought back and made into the She-Hulk, and I don't know. I haven't really followed it, but there's like crazy stuff going on with these supporting characters. Same thing with Rick Jones. I don't know. He became some other kind of blue creature or something I seen in the animated show they had recently. Very crazy stuff. That's I mean it's kind of hard to adapt now. Of course, General Ross became Red Hulk, which I guess is a little more. You can play with that a little more maybe in a motion picture, but it's difficult because they really ruined the comic book essence of the character. And of course, a lot of things like that. Yeah, the Red Hulk. A lot of things like that has also happened to another one of my favorites. Back when I was a kid, one of the top Marvel heroes was the Thing, Benjamin Grimm, Aunt Petunia's blue-eyed nephew. And I don't think any kids nowadays even know who the Thing is. If you asked a kid in 1982 who's your favorite, Marvel superhero, you'd hear Spider-Man, the Hulk, and the Thing. Now you hear Spider-Man and I don't know, probably Iron Man, probably Captain America, but you don't hear Hulk or the Thing anymore because they ruined the Hulk. And the Thing, I think it's more in line with because of what happened with the property being licensed by 20th Century Fox. Marvel doesn't want to stand behind, the characters that aren't owned by Disney. And so since Fox still owns, yeah, the original Rockhound, since Fox still owns 20th Century Fox, I mean, since 20th Century Fox still owns the Fantastic Four, you're not really going to see the Fantastic Four get their day either in comics or they were my favorite to read, probably, to be honest, in the past 20 years. Back when I was still tentatively reading comics, let's say the late 90s, early 2000s, there was a pretty decent run with Chris Claremont on Fantastic Four. And because they're a very easy book to get into because it's very the characters out of most comics, they have stood the same largely during all those years. So it's kind of easy to get back into, but for some reason, because Fox owns the rights, the movie rights to the Thing, you're really not going to see a push for the Thing to be, on lunchboxes and T-shirts and stuff for kids. They don't really have that benefit like we did as kids. That when the heyday of the Fantastic Four. Splash Page says, he was the man that had a chance of beating the Hulk, but we all know he can't. That's right. He was the closest one that would come to beating the Hulk, the Thing. They had a lot of great throwdowns back in the day. And I remember having back when I was a kid, they had two like rubber inflatable, like 12-inch action figures that you could bounce them around against each other. And that's what I mean. Back then, both of them were pretty much equal in terms of popularity and strength, and it made for a lot of interesting crossovers and stuff. Marvel 2-in-1. the Hulk, the Thing had his own book back in the day because he was so popular of guest starring with other Marvel heroes. Of course, Spider-Man had Marvel Team Up. Thing had Marvel 2-in-1. That's how popular he was as a solo character. And of course, he had animated series I remember from when I was a kid, which had absolutely nothing to do with the Fantastic Four, but it was popular with the kids when he would hit his rings together and become the Thing. It was like a teenage Ben Grimm. But yeah. Splash Page says John Byrne's issues of FF were great issues, and I remember those were punching bags. That's right. Yeah. Exactly. All right, so let's see here. We've been going on here for about 40 minutes or so. I think I've only got so much battery power in this. I really need battery because, unfortunately, my computer is not very reliable. But I want to thank you. I want to thank Mr. White Gloves for tuning in. You could check out his channel on Splash Page Comics. I want to thank you for joining us, Mr. White Gloves. And I want to thank everybody else who is checking out this video after the fact. We're going to wrap up here in a couple of minutes. I just want to remind everybody to check out the link in my description below to my comic book website. You can catch the Adventures of Bullets Bourbon comics there. You can order them. I've got a couple of issues I'm still going to autograph. That deal is almost up. So if you want an autographed copy, you'd have to work swiftly, probably the end of the month. And I want to thank you for tuning in, Splash Page Comics. Thanks for showing up. I try to do these shows every Saturday night, time permitting. Sometimes I'm a little bit later, sometimes a little bit earlier. Once again, I try to you can follow me on Twitter in the link to the description, which I always notify all my followers that I'm going to do a live broadcast, even if it's only like 15 minutes before the show, like tonight, where I wasn't sure if I was going to do a show tonight. I still put it up on Twitter. So you can follow me on Twitter, and that's the best way to find out when and if I'm doing a show any given week. And I like to do the live shows because I take so long putting up the reviews, the news roundups, because I'm a meticulous editor. I edit things like crazy, and it takes me forever to write the videos and stuff. That's why I kind of prefer doing the live show on Saturday nights. We'll have to see if maybe I'll start doing more live shows and less of the prepared stuff. But I'm hopefully going to get another Torch News Roundup coming up next week. So until then, I want to say this is Johnnie Torch reminding you, keep the flame burning brightly, and I'll be with you again real soon.